Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. The player status system and light survival mechanics are getting some updates in Star Citizen Alpha 3.9. CIG have just done a AMA and asked me anything on the system as planned, and I thought I'd summarise what we know about the player status system, survival mechanics, food, drink, temperature, all that sort of jazz that was talked about and a bit more in a single video. The player status system will cover all things relating to the status of a player. Currently in Alpha 3.8.2, that's the player's health and limb and body condition. If your head or chest gets to 0 health, you die. Getting injured can cause bleeding, which you need to then heal with a medipen. Stamina and oxygen are the other major things tracked. Oxygen is needed for you to live, though you can survive for a few seconds without it. Your stamina is affected by oxygen, but actions like running and jumping, these reduce your stamina to the point where you can't run or jump any longer if you don't have enough stamina. And the heavier your gear, the more you're wearing, the more you've got equipped, the heavier your mass effectively. Basically, the more stamina you're going to be using for just your general movement and running around. And if you're using lots of stamina, you're also going to be using your oxygen quicker, and oxygen will be depleted in your oxygen tank, leading to eventually death. But there are lots of areas where there are oxygen. It's just some atmospheres and space, obviously, that does not have oxygen, or at least atmosphere that is breathable. We are getting major updates to the player status system in Alpha 3.9. This is going to start to track temperature, hunger, thirst, and new buffs and debuffs. So let's start with temperature. Hot and cold is really what we're talking about here, although each planet and moon will have their own temperature. Armor and clothing will have their own stats that affect their ability to deal with heat and cold. These are known as their temperature operating windows, and this is going to retroactively get added to all existing clothes and armor in the game for 3.9, it seems. Most of the clothing and armors in game already will allow you to survive in normal everyday Earth temperatures. For more extreme climates like Microtech and Daymar, you're going to need more specialized environmental suits that are going to be released alongside the player status or actor status system in 3.9 for both hot and cold conditions. You're going to be able to see the specific temperature values an item was manufactured for in a lot more detail as well. It's not just going to be sort of like you have to guess. If you are too cold or too hot when you're out on Microtech or whatever, you will see a estimated life expectancy on your HUD that will count down. Being too hot or too cold will also affect your character's vision and movement. Weather, wind and storms will also cause your character to slow down potentially and like protect their faces. That can affect temperature. So the stronger winds, that can have your character leaning more, but wind does not burn more calories, as it were in 3.9. In 3.9 as well, space doesn't have a temperature. So essentially what that means is all space-worthy jumpsuits or spacesuits and undersuits will be able to handle space. You don't have to worry about exposure there. That's what they're designed for. It's just atmospheric temperatures that you will have to worry about. However, they did say if you find a gas cloud in space, that will be very cold. And I'm not sure if that's in 3.9. It'll be interesting to see if there's something that I'm not aware of yet. Food and drink. So players will have a hydration and nutrition value being tracked. So food and drink will have one or both of those values. The higher the value, the better, because, you know, it's just more calories, it's more hydration. These will come in many forms, food and drink, though, in 3.9, from bottled water to energy drinks to burritos to canned food. A lack of food or drink separately will kill you, or both, I suppose, but one will kill you before the other, I suspect. But it will be several real-life hours before you die from starvation. However, they haven't locked down the exact specifics yet. They are in the midst of testing exactly how long it should take for you to starve to death. CIG did clarify further, saying the idea behind food and drink was to make it a long enough process that it wasn't intrusive to gameplay, but short enough that you have to eat at least sort of like once or so in a several hour play session. If they made that like too long, that would be kind of devalue the purpose of having it at all. Food and drink will be purchasable in 3.9. You should be able to purchase food and drink consumables at all major landing locations. Different locations will offer different selections, with each food and drink item having their own corresponding nutrition and hydration stats and ratings. Some foods and drinks will also offer buffs like improved stamina regen and debuffs like increased thirst, so you will want to choose when stocking up on certain consumables which ones to take with you. So there is more to eating and drinking than just surviving. When you buy food or drink, it will appear in your hand. If that item is sealed, like a chocolate bar or water, you will be able to store it in your personal commodity inventory. You will not be able to store opened food and drink consumables in 3.9. So, like a cup of coffee or a glass of whiskey. That will come, though, when they add the physical inventory in a future patch, apparently, which is interesting. I'm not really sure how you'd store a glass of whiskey with you anyway, but the idea is that you could have like an open candy bar, I suppose. Also, some harvestables will be edible, or at least consumable. The reason I say that is that it seems that some harvestables, along with consumables, might have toxic effects or have negative effects from like poisoning to dehydration. Harvestables are just sometimes food items that are not bought. They're just found on the ground or on bushes or whatever in caves. You just start stuffing everything in your face like an orc, like a big fat orc. You're an orc! I'm sorry, I went a little bit off the rails there. Other players will be able to drop food and drink items that they've stored in their commodity backpack for you to consume, so it's always good to have a buddy who stocks up before heading out on an adventure. It's interesting, though, because I love the idea of having a load of food with me like a chef that just sort of like sits down and goes, food for everyone! It doesn't appear that we're going to have narcotics that are consumable in 3.9, at least it wasn't mentioned fully in the AMA. They mentioned everything else as consumables, but not the new narcotics that were seen in leaks. Buffs and debuffs. So there are new buffs and debuffs with temperature and food and drink in 3.9. When you begin to suffer from a particular status like hypothermia or dehydration, you will start to suffer very small negative effects, so increased stamina costs, slight blurry vision, etc. This will get progressively worse if you do not address it. You will visually be able to see what's going on, though, and it getting worse over time or exposure. You can address those conditions by doing the thing that you need to do, whether it be eat or drink or get warm or get cold or whatever. For an example of some buffs, high energy food has the keyword energizing, which provides a stamina regen bonus. The more of that type of food that you eat, the more that buff will stack. So you have buffs that can stack, and there are caps on any particular sort of like buff that how long it can last and that sort of stuff. This will be denoted by up to 3 small plus symbols or minus symbols based on it being a buff or a debuff on the HUD. The player status system will have hunger, thirst, and player status persisting between logons. So when you log back in, you will be hungry still if you've logged out. You can't use that to, get away from being hungry, although you won't gain hunger or thirst while you're logged out. Using stamina affects the rate at which you sort of use your hydration and your nutrition, so running around more makes you more hungry. So sprinting everywhere and jumping up and down repeatedly will see you needing to drink more and eat more. We will not be able to see other player statuses in 3.9. I suspect that will be part of the medical system in the future, and there are no side effects from blowing up narcotics sort of packages next to players' faces. There's going to be some DFX there, but it's not going to sort of give you a debuff condition or something, at least not in 3.9. There are some more plans for the future of the system too. They will be adding damage types that affect your character with a debuff in the future. You might get slowed or stunned by like electrical damage, and there's other types of damage that you'll get in the future as well. And there are various other statuses planned: poisoning, radiation. CIG have also talked about transmittable illnesses and viruses between players and NPCs. A lot of these statuses will be curable with medbeds, but not in 3.9. It's going to be in the future, and then it's going to be like certain tiers of medbed or hospital visits to cure certain conditions, or you can use like consumables to potentially help with these too. They did also say they want to change med pens in the future, so they're more of a temporary fix to get you back on your feet, so that you can then get appropriate treatment rather than sort of like being a cure-all status of just get your health back up. Knockdowns are also planned to be properly supported in the future, having characters being able to be knocked over and dragged and properly stunned, and then you can be helped back up or otherwise recover over time. Hygiene is planned to be a thing in the future as well, where you'll need to use the toilet or shower. Otherwise, people will either comment on it. Maybe you do get a debuff from it as well. Tiredness and Fatigue is also planned to be added in the future. That will certainly cause some interesting results. NPCs will make use of the system in the future as well, choosing behaviors and trying to preserve their lives or wear the right equipment for the right situations. And CIG have said that Star Citizen is not a survival game at base, and they believe the environment that you are heading into should affect your decisions and directly influence how you prepare for your trip, though. So, light survival mechanics seem to be the plan here, nothing super major. I'd like to thank various people at CIG, Chris Parry, Richt, and Mpiatek. Piatek. I don't know how to say any of these people's names, as well as the CIG community team in general for putting on this AMA and answering a load of questions, not just mine, but the communities at large as well. I love having devs answer questions on systems they are working on because they are very knowledgeable and they will answer interestingly. And that's sort of it for my summary of what we know about the player status system, light survival mechanics, that AMA, and the data we've had relatively recently on 3.9 and what we're getting there. We should have our hands on some of those updates in 3.9's PTU coming later this month, as well as the planned live build for the end of the month for 3.9. But I am interested to know what you think. Are you worried about having to eat and drink too often? Do you like the plans for these mechanics? Do you hate them? Or are you indifferent? Do you need to see them in your hands with your eyes and all that sort of jazz before you make a decision? Whatever your thoughts, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. I'm pretty happy with having to eat and drink in game, as long as it's not very long, and as long as the sort of like debuffs aren't particularly severe for a long period as well. You just have them piling up over, you know, if I haven't eaten for, I don't know, 20 hours of real life gameplay, then maybe my character should be pretty weak, because, you know, it's effectively accelerated time in game, sort of, because, you know, it's action, adventure, heroic gameplay. At least that's my take on it. But I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, as I said. Every month we have a ship giveaway for Star Citizen. This month we are giving away an Anvil Arrow Light Fighter and game package with that, so you can have access to Star Citizen if you don't already. All you got to do to be in for a chance of winning that is comment on any of my videos made during the month of March. There are full details in the description below. I am a shill for a couple of companies, NordVPN and NordPass. If you are looking for a VPN or a password management system, I recommend you check them out. They've got many benefits over free services, and as I'm pretty security conscious, I love those kind of services. Also, there's Shadow. If you are thinking about getting a new gaming rig or upgrading your gaming PC for Star Citizen or whatever, then consider Shadow instead. It is a internet cloud-based subscription service like Stadia, like GeForce Now, but this one gives you access to a full Windows 10 environment which is fully customizable, and that is significantly better in my opinion, allowing you to do a lot more with it. Check out the links below for them, or use the code BoredGamer for discount. Also, if you wish to support the channel further, there is Patreon, there's the YouTube join member button down below. That really helps. This is a community supported channel, and I wouldn't be able to do what I do without the support that I get. If you want to share these videos, if you want to comment, give feedback, whatever, that is also hugely appreciated. Thanks very much for watching, guys. You take care, and I'll see you in the verse.